You have more shadow than light. Here's why they chose you. There is a reason you felt different your whole life. A reason why you've never quite fit into the mold they gave you. You've always sensed something deeper beneath the surface of this world, a hidden layer, a coded truth, a reality that no one around you seemed willing to discuss. And maybe, just maybe, you've wondered if the darkness inside you, those heavy emotions, those self-sabotaging patterns, those moments when you felt you were your own worst enemy, meant you were broken. But what if I told you everything you've been taught to fear about yourself is actually the reason they chose you? When I say they, I don't mean people in suits or some shadowy organization. I'm talking about the higher forces, the architects of destiny, the intelligence woven into the universe itself. Call it source, spirit, the council, your ancestors, your guides, whatever language speaks to your soul. They saw the blueprint of your soul before you incarnated. They saw your shadow, not just your light, and they said, that one is ready. Because here's the paradox: the deeper your shadow, the greater your capacity for light. And the ones with the most shadow, they're not cursed, they're called.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
But why would they choose someone with more shadow than light? Why not pick the ones who already radiate peace, love, and positivity? Because here's the truth most spiritual teachings avoid: light without shadow is incomplete. It's fragile. It's performative. It doesn't yet know itself. Real power is born in the places you've been told to hide. Real awakening doesn't come from avoiding the dark, it comes from walking straight into it, eyes open, heart pounding, and saying, I'm ready to remember who I am. You've been tested, violated, betrayed, silenced. You felt rage so intense it scared you. Emptiness so deep it felt like a black hole. You've harmed yourself in ways you haven't even admitted out loud. And yet here you are, listening, searching, yearning. That's not weakness. That's soul memory. That's the part of you that remembers what you came here to do. The world told you your pain made you less. But what if it was the very proof that you were being prepared? Let's go deeper. The shadow is not just your pain, it's your power in disguise. Every wound you carry is a portal. Every suppressed emotion is a locked door waiting for your consciousness to open it. That depression. It's the grief of your soul being disconnected from its truth. That anxiety. It's your energy trying to escape a version of you that's too small for your spirit. That rage. It's your inner warrior demanding to be seen. The Matrix has taught you to medicate, avoid, and numb all of this. Because if you ever really understood what was inside you, you'd become unstoppable. Do you know what it takes to carry that kind of density and still choose the path of awakening? Do you know how rare it is to be in the middle of darkness and still whisper, there must be more than this? That's courage. That's sacred rebellion. And that's why you were chosen. Because while others seek the light to escape the dark, you were sent here to bring the light into the dark. That is the work of the initiates, the shadow walkers, the soul forgers. And that is you. Let me ask you something. When was the first time you realized the world wasn't what it seemed? Not just the corruption or the lies, but the energy of it. The feeling that something was deeply off. That people were asleep. That systems were empty. That love felt conditional. That truth was hidden in plain sight. That moment, whether it came in childhood, in heartbreak, in addiction, or in silence, was your soul beginning to wake up. That was your call to adventure. And from that moment on, your shadow began to shift. It no longer served to destroy you. It began to serve as your compass. You see, the shadow is not a prison. It's a map. Each layer of it reveals another part of your mission. Your trauma teaches discernment. Your sadness teaches presence. Your fear teaches surrender. Your envy teaches authenticity. Every emotion you've been taught to reject is actually a sacred teacher. And that's why your path looks different. That's why your journey has been harder. Because you weren't sent here to play the game, you were sent to rewrite the rules. But that path can feel unbearably lonely, because most people don't want to meet their shadow. They want comfort, not truth. They want validation, not transformation. And when you start to awaken, you become a mirror. You reflect back to others what they're not ready to see. That's why they distance themselves. That's why they call you too intense, too sensitive, too dark. But they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the part of themselves they've buried. So you must learn to stand alone, not in bitterness but in power, not in isolation but in sovereignty. Because the deeper you go into your shadow, the less you need from the world. You stop chasing approval. You stop betraying yourself to belong. You stop dimming your light to protect others from their own blindness. And you start to remember, not learn, remember. Because your soul didn't come here to be taught. It came here to reclaim. You were chosen because you can see both worlds, the illusion and the truth, the performance and the presence, the chaos and the code, and more than that, you can hold both. That's what makes you powerful. Not that you've transcended the shadow, but that you've integrated it. You can walk through fire and still love. You can descend into pain and still create. You can face your demons and still choose compassion. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you dangerous to the system. That's why they chose you. But don't mistake being chosen for being better. It's not about hierarchy. It's about responsibility. It's about capacity. It's about willingness. You said yes to a soul contract that many would never dare to sign. You agreed to carry more shadow than most, not to be punished, but to become a vessel for transmutation. Because when you heal, the code of that healing ripples through your ancestral line, your energetic field, your soul group. Your personal liberation is collective liberation. So now I ask you, if your shadow is your map, are you willing to follow it? If your pain is your portal, are you brave enough to walk through it? If your soul remembers who you are you ready to become it? The shadow is the sword, how pain becomes the tool of the awakened. You've probably been taught that pain is something to escape, to numb, to fix. That when you're hurting, it means something has gone wrong. But what if I told you that pain is not your enemy, it's your awakening in disguise? What if the very thing you've been running from is the exact thing that will set you free? This is why they chose you. Because you don't just carry more shadow, you carry the courage to wield it. The moment you stop seeing pain as punishment and start recognizing it as sacred information, your entire perspective shifts. Pain becomes a language. It becomes a guide. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every rejection you've endured wasn't meant to break you, it was meant to break open the parts of you that had gone dormant. Look back. Really look. The deepest lessons, the most pivotal moments of your growth didn't come when everything was easy. They came when everything was falling apart. That's not a coincidence. That's initiation. You weren't sent here to transcend the human experience. You were sent to master it. And mastery doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from presence, from sitting in the fire of your emotions without trying to escape, from letting your grief speak, from letting your rage move, from letting your shame rise up and be seen, possibly for the first time ever. That's when the alchemy begins. That's when shadow becomes sword. And what is the sword? It's your embodiment of truth. It's your ability to walk into any space and not shrink. To feel your fear but not be ruled by it. To speak what you know is real, even if your voice trembles. The sword is not about violence. It's about clarity. It's about cutting through illusion. It's about standing in your frequency so fully that anything not aligned with it naturally falls away. But here's the divine irony. You can't wield the sword until you've bled on it, until you've cried into it, until you've faced the parts of yourself you swore you'd never show anyone. And that's why shadow work is not a trend, it's sacred warfare. It's the brave act of reclaiming every part of you that was shamed, silenced, or exiled. You become whole not by becoming perfect, but by becoming real. And let's be honest, realness is rare. In a world addicted to performance, your authenticity is revolutionary. When you stop pretending, when you stop filtering your truth to be more palatable, you disrupt the system. You become the glitch in the matrix, not because you're louder than everyone else, but because you're truer. That's what the matrix fears, not noise, but clarity. A person who knows who they are and isn't afraid to live it. So how do you begin to use your shadow as your sword? You start by observing what triggers you, not to judge it, but to learn from it. Triggers are invitations. They're not signs of failure. They are keys. Every time something stirs you emotionally, it's pointing to a wound that's asking for your attention. And that wound isn't just there to be healed, it holds a gift. Maybe your abandonment wound is teaching you how to belong to yourself. Maybe your anger is revealing where your boundaries need to be built. Maybe your jealousy is guiding you toward your true desires. Nothing is random. Everything is coded. And then you go deeper. You sit with your shadow as if it were a long-lost friend. You stop fighting it. You ask it questions. What are you protecting me from? When did you first show up? What do you need from me now? It will answer. Not in words, but in sensations, in memories, in dreams. This is sacred dialogue. This is self-initiation. No guru can do this for you. No system can hold this for you. It's between you and your soul. And slowly the shadow becomes less scary. It becomes familiar. You realize it was never trying to destroy you, it was trying to lead you home. You start to see that your darkness was never a mistake. It was the soil your light needed to grow. And suddenly your story changes. You're no longer a survivor, you're an alchemist. You're no longer trying to escape your past, you're mining it for wisdom. You're no longer hiding who you are, you're embodying it fully. This is how pain becomes power, not by bypassing it, not by pretending you're healed, but by honoring it as sacred, by letting it reveal your strength, because you were built for this. You weren't chosen because you were already whole. You were chosen because you could become whole, because you could walk into the places most fear to enter and come back with the medicine. That's what a true spiritual warrior does. That's what you are here to do. So let me ask you, what part of your shadow do you still fear the most? What pain are you still resisting? And more importantly, what would happen if you stopped resisting and started listening? The mirror of the matrix, why your wounds reflect the world's illusions. There's a truth that will change everything if you let it in. The world you see outside is not separate from the world inside. Your wounds aren't just personal, they're fractals of a much larger illusion. The manipulation, the control, the fear, the scarcity, the shame, it's not just happening out there. It's mirrored within us. The matrix doesn't just trap people through systems and structures, it traps them through identity, through narratives that make you forget who you truly are. And the entry point for those narratives, your wounds. This is why healing isn't just self-care, it's rebellion. It's a revolutionary act, because every time you choose to look at your pain instead of running from it, you're dismantling a piece of the matrix that lives inside you. You're reclaiming your sovereignty. You're saying no more. No more to being defined by the past. No more to being programmed by trauma. No more to playing small just to stay safe. You're unplugging not just intellectually but energetically. Let's be honest, the matrix is seductive. It offers comfort in exchange for conformity, approval in exchange for silence, success in exchange for self-abandonment. And most people accept the deal without even realizing it, because they've been taught to ignore the whispers of their soul in favor of the loud voice of the world. But you can't ignore it. You've tried. You've tried to numb, to distract, to fit in. But it never lasts, does it? Because your soul remembers. It remembers the truth you came here to embody. It remembers the mission behind your pain. And no matter how deep you bury it, that truth keeps rising. So let's connect the dots. Your abandonment wound. It mirrors a world built on disconnection. Your shame? It mirrors a system that profits from your self-hatred. Your fear of being seen? It mirrors a culture that punishes authenticity. It's not just you. It's never just been about you. Your personal shadows are gateways into collective illusions. And when you do the inner work, you're not just healing yourself, you're exposing the lie. You become a frequency that the matrix can't hold. That's why awakening can feel so chaotic, because the more you see the world clearly, the more your inner illusions start to unravel. The people you thought loved you begin to feel distant. The job that once gave you purpose starts to feel hollow. The dreams you once chased begin to feel like cages. That's not failure. That's recalibration. That's your soul pulling back its energy from anything built on illusion. And trust me, it's not always graceful. Sometimes it looks like breakdown. Sometimes it looks like depression. Sometimes it looks like loss. But underneath it all is a deeper intelligence guiding you back to alignment. The world outside will always reflect the world within. So if you want to change your reality, you have to start with your inner landscape. You must become aware of the stories you're still carrying. Stories like I'm not enough, I have to earn love, it's not safe to be seen. These aren't just thoughts. They're energetic contracts. And as long as you're still operating from them, you're plugged into the matrix no matter how spiritual you appear to be. So how do you shift? You begin by witnessing, not fixing, not analyzing, just witnessing. You become the observer of your thoughts, your patterns, your emotions. You slow everything down. You bring presence to your pain. And in that space of awareness, the illusion starts to dissolve. Not because you fought it, but because you saw through it. The matrix can only survive in unconsciousness. The moment you become conscious, you take your power back. And then something beautiful begins to happen. You stop blaming the world and you start understanding it. You stop trying to escape and you start transforming. You realize that every trigger is a teaching. Every challenge is a call to expand. Every wound is a mirror showing you where you've forgotten your light. And you stop needing the world to change because you are changing. You become the shift. You become the new frequency. This is how you become a master of the matrix, not by escaping it, but by transcending it from within. By seeing the illusion and choosing to live in truth anyway. By no longer needing permission to be who you are. By recognizing that your freedom was never something to earn, it was something to remember. And the more you live from that remembrance, the more the matrix loses its grip. It can't manipulate someone who's rooted in their soul. It can't control someone who's made peace with their shadow. It can't seduce someone who's no longer hungry for validation. So let me ask you this: what illusions are you still feeding with your energy? What stories are you still calling truth? And what could happen if you chose to see everything, even your pain, as part of the path to awakening? The final unlock why your darkness was the training for divine purpose. What if everything that broke you was actually building you? What if every wound, every failure, every descent into darkness wasn't a detour, but a doorway? What if your shadow wasn't just a burden, but a blueprint? We tend to think purpose is something we find through clarity, through vision boards, through following the light. But the truth, the deeper, sharper, more soul-burning truth is that your purpose emerges through the darkness you've survived. The pain was never punishment, it was preparation. You didn't come here to float in the light. You came here to anchor it into the places that haven't seen it in lifetimes. That's why they chose you. Because only a soul who has walked through hell can carry heaven with integrity. Only someone who has known despair can offer real compassion. Only someone who has faced their own demons can help others face theirs. The depth of your suffering has created the depth of your capacity. And now, that capacity is ready to be used not just for survival, but for service. Think about it. Think about how many times you've broken and rebuilt. Think about the strength it took to crawl through nights where the silence felt like it would swallow you. I think about the versions of yourself you had to let die so more honest you could live. That wasn't just healing. That was training. That was your soul being forged in the fire for something greater than you could understand at the time. Your darkness wasn't a mistake, it was initiation. And now comes the final unlock. You don't need to be fully healed to serve, to lead, to speak, to create, to love. The Matrix wants you to believe you're not ready until you've fixed every flaw, until you've erased every scar. But that's the lie. The very things you think disqualify you are the reasons you're qualified. Your wounds give you authenticity. Your shadow gives you depth. Your journey gives you authority, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that liberates. You don't guide others from a pedestal. You guide them from the path you've walked with bloody feet and a burning heart. Purpose isn't something you do. It's something you remember. It's not a job title. It's a frequency. It's the energy you embody when you stop pretending and start living from your truth. And often, that truth is born from the ashes, from the breakdowns that stripped you, from the grief that opened your heart, from the loneliness that taught you to commune with your soul. That's where real purpose is shaped, in silence, in stillness, in the raw places no one claps for. And maybe, for a long time, you thought your story disqualified you. Maybe you believed you had too much darkness, too many flaws, too many failures. But what if your story is the medicine? What if someone out there is waiting to hear the exact truth you've been hiding? What if your shadow, when shared with honesty, becomes someone else's light? That's how divine purpose works. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real. So let's stop asking, what is my purpose? And start asking, what part of my story am I still afraid to own? Because that's where your power is. That's where your service lives. Not in your perfection, but in your willingness to show up as you are, heart open, scars visible, truth unapologetic. That's the frequency that changes the world. Not through force, but through resonance. Through the quiet, steady vibration of someone who has faced themselves and come out the other side with love in their eyes. And here's the ultimate truth. You were never meant to be consumed by your shadow. You were meant to master it, to ride it, to transmute it, and then to teach others how to do the same. You're not here for the surface-level light. You're here to embody the whole spectrum, to be the bridge between the seen and unseen, to remind humanity what it means to be whole. That's why your life has been what it's been. That's why your pain was so precise. Because your soul crafted this curriculum for one reason: to prepare you for now. So what now? Now you rise not as someone who has it all figured out, but as someone who is finally real. Now you speak not from ego, but from experience. Now you create not to impress, but to express. Now you serve not to be validated, but because you remember what it felt like to be lost. Now you lead not with authority, but with authenticity. Now you live not to survive, but to embody. And if you ever doubt your path again, remember this: they chose you not because you were perfect, but because you had the capacity to transform. Because your shadow was never a curse, it was a calling. And now you've answered. So go. Be who you came here to be, and let the world feel your frequency.